It was the cause of so many years of yo-yo dieting. Please don't say Alex on the internet told me to throw away all my old. But ultra processed foods slow down its release. So despite all of this, how have I lost 125 pounds? The reason why I go on and on about how calories do not count when it comes to ultra processed foods. A year from now, when you're like, oh, new year, new me, your body's saying the same thing. Let me guess. You've tried every diet there is, you've calorie restricted, you fasted, and you continue to struggle on your weight loss journey. What if I told you it's not how much you're eating, but the type of food you're eating? And actually, the type of food you're eating is intentionally engineered to make you want to keep consuming more. And even worse, if you try to restrict the amount of this type of food, your body will just respond by increasing your hormones for hunger and lowering your metabolism so that you still gain weight even if your calorific intake has not changed. If you haven't already guessed what I'm talking about, it's ultra processed foods. And in today's video, I'm going to explain why that is the cause of obesity and not you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Alexandra here, or welcome to my channel if you're new. I am a medical student. I am a plant mum. I am a big stepper because your girl's doing 13K a day. And I am also a massive enthusiast of movement, of nutrition, all of the things that basically combat obesity. I went to an obesity lecture a couple of years back, hosted by my medical school, and it basically ignited a deep interest that I have in talking about and understanding what actually causes obesity and how to combat it. And in today's video, we're going to deep dive into ultra processed foods, what they are, and how they cause obesity and how to reverse it. So let's get into it. So what is an ultra processed food? Ultra processed food, very simply put, is when normal food is industrially processed, and in this process the fiber is stripped away, the nutrients are stripped away, and countless other things that would be in the natural form of the food is stripped away from it. And then as the industrial process continues, they'll add additives, they'll add coloring, they'll add chemicals, they'll add emulsifiers, they'll add saturated fat, they'll add an obscene amount of sugar or synthetic sugar replacements, and then they'll also add things like flavor enhancers. Additionally, this can be done to any kind of diet. So whether it's vegan, pescatarian, vegetarianism, all different types of diets can have their own versions of ultra processed foods. So to give you examples of ultra processed foods, there are things which are probably quite obvious to a lot of us, and then there are some things it's like, is that ultra processed food? Yes, it is. So as an example, corn on the cob, non-processed. Corn in a can, minimally processed. Those two categories, for the most part, absolutely fine. And then you have ultra processed, and you'll get things like What's It, my personal favorite for a very, very long time, with no idea of the dangers. I absolutely adored What's It. But when you look on the back of What's It, you'll see all the different ingredients as to why you can safely assume it's an ultra processed food item. There are things like frozen foods like frozen lasagna. There are things like sliced bread. Near enough all of the fast food chains, you know, your McDonald's, your Burger King, your KFC, all of those types of restaurants serve ultra processed foods. And then you have obviously chocolate bars, crisps, soft drinks, all of these food groups. For every food that you can have which is non-processed or minimally processed, there is an ultra processed version of it, or entirely new versions that don't even exist in nature. So essentially the two main dangers of ultra processed foods is their composition and the chemical content. So why does it cause obesity? Many of us are familiar with the weight loss drug Wegovy, Ozempic, Manjaro. They're all different forms of a hormone that our body naturally produces called GLP-1. GLP-1 is a hormone that is produced in our gut that signals to your brain that you are full. But ultra processed foods slow down its release. Now, this is because of the composition of ultra processed food. If you think about when you eat something that's ultra processed, by the time it hits your mouth, it's already like down your throat. It's almost like it melts in your mouth before you even had a chance to really chew it, and then it's already down your throat. In the same way it passes through your mouth so easily, it does the same thing in your gut. it's very, very quick to go through your gut and be digested. Now, this is an issue because for GLP-1 to be produced, the food passing through your gut has to pass through slowly. When the food passes through your gut slowly, your body will release the GLP-1. GLP-1, you'll go to your brain and say, oh, hey, we've got food on the way. I think we've got just about enough that we can digest. Tell her that she's had enough so that we don't have more than we can safely digest. Now, when you consider how quickly ultra-processed food is digested, our body doesn't have time to send through GLP-1. So then we keep feeling insatiable hunger. So we continue to consume the food. So number one, ultra-processed foods are not allowing us to release GLP-1 to make us feel full. That's the one thing it's doing. The second thing that it does is, because of its composition and the level of sugar and the level of saturated fat, when we're continually eating foods like this, it means that our insulin is constantly being released around the clock to take up all the sugar into our cells. Now, the problem with having insulin so high so much of the time, insulin is read in the same area of your brain as another hormone called leptin. Basically, the constant release of insulin is in the way of this other hormone called leptin, and they're competing for the same region. And when the saturated fat is very high, our cells can't read the insulin properly. The reason why this is such a big issue is leptin is the hormone in our body that controls our body weight. The more leptin you have in your system, the bigger you are, because leptin is produced by our fat cells. And the less leptin you have, the smaller you are. Now, the reason why people who are overweight, who actually have high leptin, are overweight, is because the insulin is always in the way. It's always in the way because of the composition of our diet. So when leptin is trying to be read by your brain can't read it. So instead your brain thinks, well, we hardly have any leptin, we must be underweight. So if we're underweight, what am I going to do? I'm going to lower the metabolism and I'm going to increase the hunger. So when you go back, you're eating all this ultra-processed food, you continue to eat it, but you're constantly hungry. You'll eat it, say you have a meal, an hour later, you're starving again. Or you keep going through bouts of food noise where it's like every few minutes, all your thoughts are consumed by food, and that's all that's ever on your mind. You constantly have cravings. And then you're thinking to yourself, why am I constantly hungry? I've just had this massive meal. And the reason why is the ultra-processed foods are disrupting the normal behavior of our hormones. GLP-1 isn't getting released, too much insulin is getting released, and leptin isn't getting the chance to be read by your brain. All of these reasons is why ultra-processed foods cause obesity. They cause cravings, they cause food noise, all because they are engineered to never make you feel satisfied by directly impacting the normal function of your hormones. And you know what's so funny? Whenever people talk about the fact that, oh, I love eating, I enjoy eating, and that is the main reason for the struggle of their weight loss, people are never usually talking about, oh, I love eating carrots, and I love eating broccoli, and I love eating all these nutrient-dense foods. Most of the time, and including myself previously, when I was talking about all those foods, it was always foods which were either ultra-processed, high in fat, high in sugar, all these foods that basically inhibits our natural ability to control our hunger. So if you were then to turn around and tell me, well, Alex, I'll just eat less of it, I'll just calorie count, I'll just control the calorie intake. The reason why I go on and on about how calories do not count when it comes to ultra-processed foods is because if you decide, well, I'm only going to have 1,600 calories of such ultra-processed foods and eat whatever I want to eat, because of the composition of this food, if you only have those 1,600 calories, say, but you still feel hungry, your body isn't going to forget that you feel hungry. So even if you have the strongest willpower in the world and you decide, I don't care if I feel hungry, it's normal to feel hungry, I'm not going to eat, your body still registers the fact that you are hungry. Now, you do this day after day after day after day, months, and your body was feeling hungry for all of those months, and you were just ignoring that feeling because of the strength of your willpower, say. A year from now, when you're like, oh, new year, new me, your body's saying the same thing. Your body is saying the same thing, guys. I know. I am talking about yo-yo dieting because I had the strongest willpower in the world. Your body said, So last year we noticed that you denied us food the whole year. That's what your body is registering. So your body says, okay, well, for this year, we're going to lower your metabolism so that you can only burn 1,400 calories. And then on top of that, we're going to make sure every single meal you have, we're keeping all of that energy and we're storing it as fat. And then on top of that, we're going to make sure you feel even hungrier. So we're going to turn up the hormones that make you feel hungry. So you've spent the last year eating 1,600 calories. You've lost a nice amount of weight. You've spent a lot of it a bit hungry, but you thought it's fine. Your body's just like, we're not going through that again. You were able to achieve a calorie deficit with 1,600. The following year, you're going to have to take that down to 1,400 because your body says that's the amount of energy we're burning now. And the issue is because the disruption to your hormones caused by ultra-processed foods was never corrected in that year of your calorie deficit, the problem you had has not gone away. And in fact, your issue will get worse. This is why so many of us, after trying so hard with different types of diets, we usually end up feeling even hungrier than we were before. And then we usually struggle even more with what we have to eat, how we have to manage our cravings and our food noise in order to be able to lose the weight again. So despite all of this, how have I lost 125 pounds? I have lost 125 pounds by essentially eliminating ultra-processed foods out of my diet. I would say 80% of my diet is minimally processed food or whole foods. Essentially, the majority of my food is no longer ultra-processed food. And I think that a lot of us can work towards achieving the same kind of thing because it's kind of essential for our health. Like, beyond obesity, which when you think about it, obesity is probably like the least offensive thing that ultra-processed foods do. We just live in a very fat-phobic society, so the first thing people see as unhealthy is somebody who is obese. But actually, ultra-processed foods are linked to far deadlier diseases. And of course, obesity is a precursor to some of these diseases too. So I would strongly advocate that as much as is within your capability to take as much ultra-processed foods out of your diet as you can. So some practical ways I think we can do this. The first and the easiest thing is turn the food around. What is the ingredients list? Like something like bread. Bread, what should you have in bread? Water, flour, yeast, salt. That's all that really needs to be in bread. When you then see things like emulsifier, flavoring, coloring, this is highly likely ultra processed. And then obviously if there's ingredients that you don't even recognize, like E numbers, or E number isn't an ingredient. So already there, you know, that's an ultra processed food. So ingredients lists are a very good indication that whether something is ultra processed or not. Also, I would say not all ultra processed foods are made equally. So if you're in an environment where, oh my God, every single loaf of bread is ultra processed, I would go for the one with the shortest ingredients list because 9 times out of 10 is probably the least ultra processed or the least offensive ultra processed food. And that's something I've adopted too. Also, I wouldn't go into your pantry or your kitchen and just throw out all the ultra processed food. Please don't say Alex on the internet told me to throw away all my, I'm not saying that, guys. I am saying when that food is finished, slowly replace it with the whole food or the minimally processed version. And then also what I've been doing is sometimes it's very hard or it's expensive to buy food that isn't ultra processed. So like a part of my breakfast meal, I have a bagel. As an example, if you had 4 bagels, have 1 bagel or 2 bagels instead, and then replace the rest of your plate with fruits, with vegetables, with nuts, with seeds, so that you still have a whole meal, but the ultra processed part of the meal is a much smaller percentage of your entire plate. I think it's very important not to become overwhelmed, and I think it's very important to make the transition into eliminating ultra processed foods in your diet very slowly. So whether that is a change in a meal, of the 2 or 3 meals that you'll have in a day, a change in snacks of the however many snacks you have in a day, and then slowly, like week by week, month by month, you then introduce more whole food options into your diet, more minimally processed options into your diet. You don't go from level 1 to 100, but you slowly transition. This is why it's taken me time to lose weight. I didn't go cold turkey and just remove everything out of my diet because I knew the transition would be hard because I was so used to eating like that I knew that the change had to come on gradual. For me to realistically integrate it into my lifestyle. I would make it fun, you know, explore new recipes, explore new types of foods, explore whole foods you've never tried before, you know, experiment with seasoning and spices and herbs. And I would definitely consider making the whole food versions of your favorite foods. Like pizza and pasta doesn't have to be off the table. You just need to make it from whole food sources, minimally processed sources, rather than that frozen food that has about 1,000 different chemicals on the ingredients list. So you can still have your favorite foods. It's just going to take a bit more work and a bit more time in the kitchen, or budgeting in type of way that you're able to make those versions of those foods, but ones which are much safer for your body and your general health. So with me personally, once I realized the dangers of ultra processed foods and what it was doing to my diet, and essentially why it was the cause of so many years of yo-yo dieting, it was kind of a very strong incentive for me to like take it out of my diet. Like that's why the majority of my diet is now non-ultra processed foods, because it's like I'm doing so much work to take care of my body, and then a lot of it is reversed with ultra processed foods. Yeah, I don't think so. So it in that respect, it wasn't as hard. And now, because I'm so used to eating a more whole foods diet, minimally processed and ultra processed free, I can taste almost like the synthetic taste of ultra processed foods. It doesn't give me like the same enjoyment that I used to have from it. So now when I do have like, you know, that cake or that brownie or something, like, or a packet of crisps, I will shop for the packet of crisps that have, you know, potatoes and vegetable oil, and that's all it says on the ingredients list. So the only thing that's really like maybe bad about that food is maybe it's a bit high in fat, but not that it has about, you know, all these other chemicals on the ingredients list. Or if I'll get like a brownie or a cake on, you know, a special occasion or someone's birthday, I'll get like the quality stuff. Like I'm going to like a small bakery, you know, owned by a family for the last 40 years, and you know they're making everything from scratch. That's where I'm going for my brownie. Like I'm going the extra mile, because if I'm gonna have something which is a bit higher in fat and high in sugar, I'm gonna make sure it tastes good, and I'm gonna make sure it's not got all these chemicals in it. When you eat food like that, it's so rich, and it's just like you definitely get that satisfaction without feeling like you have to have 1,000 of them, just because they're so well made and from all these like natural ingredients that you enjoy the dessert but you feel satisfied. So for me now, when I have a meal, I will look at my plate and say, I want to make sure there's very little ultra processed food on this plate. I want to make sure that there's fermented food on this plate. I want to make sure there's probiotics on this plate, prebiotics on this plate, fiber on this plate, protein on this plate, complex carbs on this plate. And most of the time when I envision how I want to make up my plate of food, I make sure the food is very diverse in nutrients, in vitamins, in colors, so that I know that I'm getting different types of vitamins and nutrients. So my goal is always to make myself feel full, and feel full with food that is very nutritious and has very, very little chemicals in it. And eating with that approach is what has helped me like lose the weight that I have now. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.